Now, Alireza has toyed with a Petrov himself, and it would be really funny if we saw the roles reversed. But Jan does not want to flirt with the possibility of a forcing line. He plays 1d4, and we will get a traditional Tarrasch. Not the most common guest at the top level today.
No, but one that Firouzja has been displaying with more and more regularity recently. He started playing it, I believe, in Norway chess, this kind of mainline Tarrasch, and he's got decent results. He had Hikaru Nakamura on the ropes in this opening. He employed it just a couple of days ago against Jan-Krzysztof Duda with a lot of success. And okay, Nepomniachtchi, clearly an opening expert, clearly done his homework. He grabs a pawn in the center, and this is critical stuff, Dania. I believe there's a lot of theory after the move bishop to e6. And okay, fascinating. Normally top players, they try and avoid theory if they're in must-win situations. But here, he's hurtling down one of the main lines of this opening.
This tells me that Nepo must be very, very confident in his preparation, that he must have prepared this line specifically against Alireza. And believe it or not, David, I actually think knight takes d5 comes as a surprise, which will be a surprising statement to most players unacquainted with this line. But I'm pretty sure that short castle is kind of automatically played. It's one of those situations where you just sort of assume that this pawn is too dangerous to capture. And these moves can be very dangerous because, of course, has Alireza studied this move? Absolutely. But maybe it's been a while since he's taken a look at his analysis. Maybe he's frantically trying to remember, wait a second, do I play bishop e6? Do I castle first? All of the move orders start kind of jumbling together in his head. So he takes a minute to gather himself. And now I think we're going to see another series of moves blitzed out by both players.
Yeah, we see the blue. not from Firouzja, at least. He's definitely trying to recall his home cooking. Just like Mark Rober, he needs to engineer something here to kind of compensate for that pawn that he's just sacrificed. But really strange to see him thinking. The queen exchange, I think, is the most logical, at least. And when black recaptures the knight on b6, the A file will open up. That's the compensation you kind of usually get in these lines. This is the Dubov Tarrasch we should mention to everyone at home. And I think there have been courses on this. It's a really trendy line. So odd here, Daniel. I've got to say, it's odd to see him thinking.
There are no other moves. I mean, upon closer inspection, he clearly was not thinking about queen takes d1. He clearly was kind of trying to remember his prep afterward. Jan continues to blitz out his moves. Now, normally I would call this an extremely dubious, or shall I say a dubovious choice in a must-win situation, but just the speed with which Jan is playing, it's making me hold my tongue because he must be more confident than Stockfish in the fact that he believes that his winning chances here are significant. Maybe he believes that Alireza has to string together a very precise sequence of moves. I think a lot of people forget that sometimes top players, they'll go into a line. Yes, they know it's equal, but they're essentially betting on the fact that their opponent either hasn't reviewed the line recently or they go into some relatively obscure channel where if you do not find all of the top moves, you're basically much worse and you're digging yourself into a big time deficit, which is exactly what's happening, David.
Yeah, it's the memory test technique. That's what they call it. The top players, when they just play an opening like this one, where the computer, you can guarantee Stockfish, probably a lot of engines, they'll say 0.0, it's level. Why would you even go down this route with white if you're seeking an advantage in a must-win situation? But as you said, it's a test. He's definitely asking Firouzja what you want to do next. You're highlighting knight before check. That's what Firouzja will be calculating.
But you do not go into this without your seatbelt fastened tight. You need a license to go into this position with white.
Yeah, I was thinking about stepping forward at first, but knight takes a2 check would have been extremely annoying. So king back to b1. It looks like you're getting mated, and bishop f5 check is a huge threat now. But wow, it's an exchange sacrifice, Dania.
Oh my gosh, knight d4. The brazen play continues. Now you need a double license. You need to be a professional to go into this. Knight d4, allowing bishop takes a2 check. And of course, the point is that at the end of the line, either the knight will get trapped on a2, or you'll get this knight rook construction, and white will try to win a second minor piece. I just quickly wanted to show, if we could pull up an analysis board, I think it's very important, particularly for newer players who might be wondering, wait, isn't this literal checkmate? Not only is it not checkmate, but it essentially loses the game after e4. And all of it depends on concrete tempi. Knight takes e4. If black were already castled, white can resign. As it stands, the pin is stronger than the checkmate. You just cannot move the knight by the rules of the game. You have to get your king out of the pin. By the time you do, white simply recaptures this knight and wins an entire piece. But the crazier choice David, is knight d4, allowing bishop takes a2 check. And after rook takes a2, rook takes a2, what does white play in this position? Apparently, bishop d2 as well as knight to c2 essentially wins the game. So black has to take on a2 with a knight, and then we're going to get this position. And how on earth are you going to extricate your knight? I think this is an awesome choice by Jan.
Amazing. I'm learning. I'm taking notes. I'm going to be analyzing this variation a bit later today with the latest engines. Don't worry, everyone. But yeah, Firouzja, he's on his own. He's 5 minutes down on the clock. High pressure situation. Good luck working your way through this kind of labyrinth now.
Genius.
Daniel, it's beyond the point of no return as well. He's committed. He's a pawn down facing the bishop pair. He needs to go into that type of line and try to survive. It's so difficult for him already.
You know, the coach of the my hometown basketball team had a famous quote. He was asked, "How do you feel about Steph Curry, shooting these long range 3-pointers?" And he basically just said, "No, no, no. Yes, yes, yes." When the ball starts going into the basket, suddenly you feel like the guy was a genius for releasing it. And I feel exactly the same way. I will admit I was very skeptical when Jan went into this endgame. It looked scary. It looked unappealing. Now I look at this position, and honestly, I have no idea how black is supposed to equalize. Because, David, the problem isn't so much that white has a threat on the next move. The problem is that eventually he's going to round up this knight, and if he does, black can essentially resign, which tells me that Alireza has to create threats, and he has to create them quickly and meaningfully.
Yeah, and we should mention Alireza, with the black pieces this tournament, he has had some disasters. Everyone remembers that 9-move loss against Fabiano Caruana, but there have been other incidents as well where he's been struggling from an early stage, and that's going to be at the back of his mind. His black repertoire has been through the ringer this tournament. He's kind of kept himself afloat in the event by being really resourceful in difficult positions, but also just being devastatingly strong with white, and suddenly he's going to be the emotions inside Daniel, he's going to be boiling. It's going to be hard to even calculate. Even if he equalizes this position, he'll need accuracy. He'll be down to 10 seconds on the clock by then. And even if he gets that knight out, white is not risking that much. White has the bishop pair. White's going to win a pawn on b7 minimum. Beautiful knight on d4 now. Just protected outpost there. And yeah, this is beautiful in terms of practical play from Nepomniachtchi. He's had this up his sleeve for a long, long time. That's how much this game means to him. He's using a weapon he could have saved up for the future. He's using it here and now.
Crunch, crunch. And he's now 7 minutes up on the clock. He's over 10 minutes, which is absolutely mesmerizing to me. The concept that we're 18 moves in. This is not some mainline knight, or if we literally have a crazy unbalanced endgame, and he's got more time than he started with. Somehow eerily similar to that game against Benjamin Bach. I think somewhere Benjamin is getting ready to have a stern talking to with me for bringing up that game. But this is incredible. How deep does this preparation go? I've been in these shoes, in Alireza's shoes, in a classical game where you feel like there's no way that my opponent could have had this position on his computer. Yeah, welcome to modern chess, ladies and gents. Welcome to modern chess, Alireza Firouzja.
Yeah, this is the kind of the downside of not working with computers or working with computers when you just assume a position is level. You look at that 0.0 kind of evaluation and you make assumptions. Just like you, Daniel, I've been there so many times in my career where I just stop analyzing one move too early. Of course, that position arises on the board. The opponents look deeper and you just sit there beating yourself up mentally. It's like, why didn't I just click that spacebar one more time, figure out why this position is level? And he's down to 2 minutes against 10. Nepomniachtchi, clearly, this is just where his preparation begins. He knows exactly the plan next, whether that's king c2, king b3, or whatever.
Of part 2 of the file, and you're telling yourself, I couldn't save, episode 6 of that series I'm watching for the next day. I couldn't spend another 5 minutes looking at the central line. Look at the time situation. This might be the most lopsided time advantage, the biggest time advantage in maybe, CCT history. It's almost a 9-minute edge, but that doesn't tell the whole story because the position remains very concrete. And clearly Alireza's problems are hypothetically solvable. The problem now, David, I think, is that you're so close. You're tantalizingly close to being able to extricate your knight from a2, but you still can't do it. Now the reason is that white has this move e4, separating the knights, and black cannot afford to lose a minor piece. This is very clear.
Yeah, and Rook D1, what a sophisticated move, by the way. Clearly helped by engine prep, but Rook D1 covers the white knight on D4 in that variation, Danya. That is just going to be a hammer blow to Firouzja's hopes. He wanted to extricate his knight, but if he can't, he's stuck back to the drawing board, back to square one. There's literally no obvious moves in this position, and he's got 1 minute left. We're going to see the eval bar swing, I think, any second. We both feel it. Firouzja feels it on the camera. Jan, I mean, not just the biggest time difference in the history of the Champions Chess Tour,
10 minutes and 10 seconds to 45 seconds. Are you kidding me? Is this an odds game of some sort? Is Alireza playing the Bullet Championship and Nepo'S playing the CCT? This is unreal.
Speed Chess Championship versus Bullet Chess Championship. This is crazy stuff. Okay, he uses the other knight, but Black's knights, superfluous, we sometimes call them, but they're just clumsy as anything.
Nepo's doing him the favor of saying, let me pretend that I have 37 seconds too. I won't make you feel that bad. Hey, I don't think that there's any extra cash for finishing the game with over 10 minutes. So Nepo should slow down. I think finally, he's in unexplored territory. And that offers exactly no relief to Mr. Firouzja.
No, the white bishop, after feasting on a pawn, has retreated. Now the black knight on b4 is stuck. There were all sorts of knight jumps for white. Okay, at least he's kind of found a way to keep things together short-term, Danya. But what do you make of the long-term chances for black? It's going to be hard to even find a move.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sort of a temporary cessation of hostilities against these two knights. And I think that Nepo might as well take his talents to the other side of the board. The paradoxical thing is that he's not going to win the knight on the next move. And I don't think that that's going to be his priority. I think he's going to open a second front. He's going to start pushing his pawns and creating the precedent for potentially even an attack against Black's king. He's got a lot of pieces remaining, 3 minor pieces and a rook. So without the aid of Black's knights, Black's king could eventually get caught in the crossfire if White can send these pawns up the board. So that's one option. David, maybe there is a way to try to set up an ambush against these knights. Maybe you can slowly zigzag your bishop around to b3. What catches your eye here? How should Nepo prosecute this position?
Yeah, maybe a bit of both. I love both of your plans. I was actually looking at the latter plan there, how to get the white bishop to the b3 square. I think that's just great visualization technique for everyone at home. And there we go, bishop to e2. Where do you want to place your pieces ideally? It might take 3 or 4 moves, but you have time as a luxury here. h6 doesn't stop anything. Bishop round to b5. I was actually looking at like rook g1 or something, and then bishop d1, bishop b3. But that could have been prevented. Ooh, h4.
What lovely geometry, but okay. Nepo doesn't need any of his extra time. Keeps the foot on the gas pedal.
Everything you mentioned, Danya. The prophet is back. He's combining pawn pushes, mysterious pawn pushes, with this potential bishop maneuver later. G4 now. Why not? Black's doing precisely 0.
But, you know, the skeptic inside of me says that and the cynic inside of me says that I've lost too many time scrambles to Alireza to count him out. The guy can play perfectly for unholy amounts of time with almost no time left on his clock. And so far, I have to say, he's doing a pretty good job of, at the very least, making Nepo prove it. I think that Firouzja's goal, essentially for the rest of the game, should be a pretty modest one. You just want to make Nepo demonstrate some sort of a winning plan. You don't want to blunder a piece. You don't want to try anything ridiculous because Nepo has all of the time in the world to see past the cheap trick.
Yeah, and cheap tricks might include an idea like doubling rooks on the A file and later a knight c3 check type idea. But in the meantime, he won't get given that luxury. The white bishop hits that rook. It is weird. It's like this status quo that can't really be broken by either player. It's not clear what white's plan is to win the black knights. It's not clear what black's plan is at all, other than just keeping the knights where they stand. Okay, 7.5 minutes though against under 20 seconds. Jan, the correct strategy, right, should just be to maneuver, and then pose questions when Firouzja has no time.
Somehow this never works for me. Maneuver, and then when I look at a Karpov game or a Carlsen game, the win somehow just arrives on a big cruise ship with the words WIN marked in clear, big red text. But somehow when I try to do this, the win never comes and the blunder never comes. So Jan has to continue this sort of slow roll approach of pushing his pawns on the king side. I think he's doing a good job of it so far. But you mentioned tricks, David. Knight to c2, and suddenly the tentacles start winding around White's king. This game ain't over. And let me tell you one thing. Jan is not going to win this game on the clock. That cannot be his only weapon.
Yeah, Alireza Firouzja yesterday lost twice on time against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, but that was because his position was hopeless
Hmm.
already. So this position's still in the balance. I love your knight c2, and the blue arrow appears. White has to keep the bishop pair, and suddenly the other knight might be hoping to get out. Okay, does he go back? If he goes back with this knight, this is the second time we've seen this position. Shake of the head from Firouzja, but he's still alive. He's fighting so well.
Yeah, this is where I would kind of get paranoid if I were Jan and just push g5 just to make sure that there's no 3-time repetition. There's 3 seconds on Firouzja's clock. He's flirting with a back rank checkmate as well, on top of all the other problems.
Oh yeah, be
Ah,
careful. Backrack checkmate in the air. He's just about surviving. Bishop takes knight on b4. Black would take the light squared bishop, and the black king would then have the h7 square as an escape route. And tactics including bishop a3 don't quite work. The black knight will be able to extricate itself there. So,
wow.
so lucky there for Ruja.
David, I mean, who wouldn't see this with 4 seconds on the clock? And maybe he didn't see it. He's calculating it now and breathing a big sigh of relief, because in that line you mentioned, you actually cannot start with rook takes a3. Again, I don't have time to show this, because the moment Jan makes a move, we're going to get another flurry. Let me tell you, the fact that Firouzja is even in this game is crazy to me. The whole narrative, the opening preparation, the glamour, all of that is pushed aside right now because the dirty work is yet to be done by Jan.
Yeah, still struggling to find that winning plan. Eventually, he does fix the kingside pawn structure, and Firouzja, he's just going round and round the board, like round in circles almost with his rooks. I mean, he's got to be careful not to walk into a knight fork himself as black, but so far doing such a good job. He made that last move with under 2 seconds, but yeah, those bullet skills you keep referring to, Danya, I mean, he's showing them off
Whoa, whoa,
all
whoa,
right
whoa.
now. Ooh, b3?
Firouzja had some crazy tactics there with rook c8 and then knight c3, even in response to king b2.
Oh my
So
gosh.
apparently there was a chance for black to save himself, but Firouzja was probably hovering his rook over the e8 square. Still,
Mhm.
Nepo has to be very careful here. He's walking on some landmines on the queen side.
It might still be there after f3. Then black can try that rook c8 idea. Now Firouzja has some time to think while Jan is in the tank. So I wouldn't be surprised if that tactic happens in the near
Oh
future.
my god.
Maybe bishop f5 would have been a clever try, but no, he gives up the exchange. Oh, this is desperation, though.
Huge bullet dodged by Jan. I think if Firouzja had maybe a minute on his clock, he would have found rook c8, and apparently the position very nearly equalizes. Now, I still don't think that white is winning in a clear-cut fashion, because what Alireza is doing is he's using the b4 square as the kind of conduit to finally get his knights out of the seventh ring of hell. If he can play knight ab4, white is technically up a pawn on the king side, but I mean, these pawns, they're doubled. They're certainly nothing that white is proud of. Jan has to keep his initiative going. How does he do it? Does he play knight b5? What catches your eye?
Yeah, I was looking at all sorts of knight jumps, knight b5, knight c6, try to solve this tactically. He's down to 4 minutes, Jan, so still plenty of time to calculate. I mean, there's not that many options, to be honest. White's pawns are stuck. White's bishop has no good squares. The rook doesn't necessarily want to move. The king can't move. So it's literally, I'm looking at knight moves, knight jumps. Not sure the most productive. Okay, I said the pawns can't move. He pushes his e-pawn. If the black knight captures that pawn, the other knight would have been trapped. So he's going hunting on the other side of the board for Ruja. He's going back to e4 potentially, Danya. Still complicated.
Man, his knights just, they never stop. They're somehow not only still in the game, but they're making the most out of their terrible accommodations, somehow finding ways to cause white a massive headache. And Nepo's 9.5 minute time advantage, it seems like forever. It's not forever. He's starting to fritter it away. And let me tell you, if this actually gets into an all out time scramble, just the psychological edge might become insurmountable. So I feel like Jan needs to seal the deal in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 moves, broadly speaking. Right now, he's got to decide where he puts the rook, because this knight is going to start mopping up some pawns. He goes rook e1. That's a weird move. Whoa,
Yeah,
whoa, whoa,
weird.
David, what are we what are we seeing here? Rook c7,
Oh god, he's
a
walking
knight
to the
f2,
lion's den, and
and
he's going to lose all of his pawns.
oh
And
my
the other black
god,
knight is no longer trapped. He's
is white
blown it, Jan Nepomniachtchi.
is white going to be worse here if he's not careful? What in the world?
Knight f3, the other knight is somewhat trapped now on g4. I mean, this is such a
Oh my
crazy type of
god! Now
position.
we move to the king side. E6. Got to take it.
Oh, okay, easy move there, but
but
Yeah, still
still,
under 5 seconds. Wow,
wow.
93.
The only
Sorry,
move to
90.
keep equality, King F3, he goes 95.
Oh
And you
my
can't go
gosh.
up to F4 because of the fork on D3. Oh
And
my
likewise, King
goodness.
D3 95 as well, and White walks into more forks. Those knights never die. They're dancing all
But
over the board.
but the bad part for Firouzja is he still has 1 second and he still has an entire eternity of defending to do. He plays rook e7. That gives Jan essentially this nasty advantage with the pawn on e3. How did he get it to this situation? He had a tactic there with knight c4. Instead, he drops back to f7. I'm pessimistic. I still feel like Jan's winning chances here, given the time situation, are pretty high. At this point, I should probably just keep my mouth shut because you cannot predict how the course of events is going to transpire. This is insane. How
Huge
is he doing
development there,
this?
though. He's staying alive with no time, 1 second. This whole game, pretty much, he's played with 2 seconds on his clock. But that trade of pawns, I was going to say, Danya, so just important for black. Now the black king is not going to get checkmated. Rook and bishop do work better than rook and knight, especially with a passed pawn in the e-file like this. But he's closer than ever to the value, like to that invaluable draw and to match victory. But still, one slip, and that's all it would take.
But and I
E5.
don't think he should have provoked the king forward. That was a hasty move. Alireza trying to kind of force the draw, but instead I think he's giving this king an outlet. The king escapes to d5, which is a much safer square than f5. Now it's not as susceptible to forks. Jan plays bishop b4, setting up the threat of e6, but allowing a check. Oh, and Alireza
Oh,
is going to get the bishop. Oh,
wow.
Jan had to slow
Huge,
down there.
huge mistake from Ian Nepomniachtchi. The bishop falls. This is a dead drawn rook endgame, and his
Oh,
chances have disappeared. Look at him on the camera, Danya. He's heartbroken.
and he had a chance there. Apparently, the move e6 straight away without the middleman would have given him a winning advantage. David, Alireza is going to pull this off. I cannot believe what
Wow.
I'm seeing.
And you've been saying it. He is the bullet chess champion for a reason. He's played this whole game with his knights trapped, his knights hanging, pieces flying all over the board, with just 1 or 2 seconds left on the clock, playing purely on the increment, but working miracles, staying alive. BG style here. He's just working miracles, Alireza Firouzja, and he's going to get that rematch against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. This is a dead drawn rook endgame. You can tell on Ian Nepomniachtchi's body language. This is over. No more chance for white now.
And just to compound the pain, not only the pain of the lost match, but that preparation, let me just say it, there's no other way to say it. That was some sexy preparation by Ian Nepomniachtchi. He pulled out the mega candidates premium stuff. That's the super stuff that you would pay beaucoup bucks to get access to. He pulled that out for this game because he thought it important. He wanted to ensure victory. He did everything but the point. Alireza, I have no words for what we just witnessed. That was insane, David. That was epic.